Hey, everybody. This is James Kashnowski coming to you with the Addictively Speaking podcast. This is episode number 2. I've decided to basically break these all down into their own type of categories. So today, we're going to talk about addiction, the definition of addiction, what people think it is, the stereotypes, what it was for me, and everything in between that. So basically, addiction is a neurological disorder characterized by a persistent and intense urge to engage in certain behaviors, often usage of drugs despite substantial harm to others and negative consequences. Repetitive drug use often alters brain function in a way that perpetuates craving and weakness in self-control. Now, that's the definition of addiction. I know that a lot of people that are struggling with addiction would agree that a lot of that is absolutely true. I know for myself, it was repetitive use, weakened my self-control, and perpetuated cravings, and trapped me in a state of depression. But a lot of people think that like an addict is like a junkie, like a heroin addict or a crack addict or something like that. Like stereotypically, they just throw these labels on people, these stigmas that these people are worthless, useless, and they're horrible people. But they're actually just people that are suffering. And people will say, "Oh yeah, but drug addiction, it's a choice. Like you made a choice to do that." And what I've realized through the years, I mean, it starts as a choice. You make a decision to do something, but you don't really realize the consequences of what you're doing or the repercussions of how bad it can actually get. A lot of people are, trying to escape from some type of trauma or some type of hurt that they're feeling. I know personally, when I was drinking, that for me, I just wanted to get away. I just wanted to be numb. I just wanted to be out of control. I didn't want to have to deal with everything because honestly, I couldn't cope with life. I couldn't deal with life, what it was after the loss of my best friend. Like I couldn't process those feelings in a healthy manner, and I didn't feel like I could talk to my friends or other people because I felt like they would perceive me as weak, or that they would, just be like, "Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. I'm always here for you," the standard stuff. So I kind of just used alcohol as my crutch, as my escape from everything. So I know that a lot of people that are addicted, they're trying to numb themselves from past traumas, or they're trying to cover up some type of hurt. Now I know that's not true for all, but I'm saying for the most part, what I've come in contact with is that people have had some type of traumatic issue, and that they're trying to escape, that they're trying to get away. So when people say, "Oh, it's a choice," addiction's not a disease. It is a disease. It's a brain disease. It's scientific. It's a fact. You can look it up. So, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but it is scientifically proven that it is a disease. It may start off as a choice, but we can't discount these people and discard them and throw them away because, like if people would have just given up on me or thrown me away, where would I have actually been? I mean, I could have died. I could have went to jail. I could have lost my entire life, but I chose to change that. So we have to have hope in people, and not enable them, but also to just love them and let them know that they're loved, and that when they want help, they can get help. Because it's important. If they don't feel like they can get help, maybe they'll never get help. So a lot of people think like the stereotypes, like I said, like people think that the stereotypical alcoholic is, like Ned the wino, like somebody that just has to wake up every morning and go drink. And that's not always the case. I mean, there's different forms of alcoholism. Things like somebody that has a glass of wine every single night for 20 years and then has to stop because of a medical condition will have alcohol withdrawal because they've had a glass of wine for 20 years every single night and they've become dependent on it. Their body needs it. So are they an alcoholic? Probably not, but their body is going to respond in a manner of of the same as somebody who wakes up every day and has to drink. They decide that they need to drink. I wasn't, in the typical sense, I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't have to wake up every single day and drink. I just drank to medicate. So when I felt horrible about everything, I drank to numb all that away. And I don't have moderation. So I was more of a binge drinking alcoholic than in the sense of like wake up 8 a.m., have a drink. I mean, I did do that every now and again, wake up and start drinking straight away. But it wasn't constant. So we have to throw some of those stereotypes aside because they're not, it's a stereotype and it's a generalization. It's not what everybody experiences in their addiction. So it's a bit different for everyone. So every addict's case is always different. So the same with their recovery. Their recovery is different. Some people need 12 steps. Some people don't need 12 step. I mean, these are all things that we have to take into consideration. Everybody's an individual, and they kind of just throw a big, blanket over the whole thing. And like, an alcoholic is what you see on TV. That's an alcoholic, like Ned the wino, the guy who sat in front of the liquor store just waiting for people to come out so he can get some change so he could go in and buy some vodka. Not always the case. I mean, that's not generally true. So for me, it was not being able to process pain and hurt and medicating. So basically, I was drinking to escape everything in life. I wanted to be out of control. I didn't want to feel anything. And that's what I did for 10 years, was not feel anything, not care about anything, myself, my family. I caused a lot of hurt and pain, which now I feel horrible for, but I've accepted. I think too, like I can't hold on to any of that and I have to let it go, because I have to accept what I did, move past it, and try to work to be a better person, a better husband, a better father, and do things like this podcast, to be able to give back, to give hope, to show people that there is a way out. You can get on the other side. You can beat addiction, and you can change your life, and you can do anything you want to do. But there's a lot of self-acceptance involved in that. So addiction, what people think it is. So we kind of touched on that with like the stereotypes and all that. And people like to say, that it's not a choice, or it's a choice. It starts as a choice, and that people make these decisions and that they don't deserve any sympathy. I see it a lot. You see it a lot online. People will say stuff like that about drug addicts or people like we're dealing with an opioid crisis in America and in other places as well, where people are getting addicted to, oxys and fentanyl and things like that. It might have started as a choice at one point, but eventually, especially with like opioids, that stuff it literally robs people of their souls. I mean, it changes them, something drastic. And I know people from the outside don't really understand like what that means. But these people they're people. They're somebody's mom, they're somebody's dad, somebody's brother, sister, aunt. They are just people and they're struggling. So I think we have to kind of take that in consideration before you lump them into this category and kind of, people like to lump people in these categories and then throw them away, because, nobody likes to look at the ugly side of things. But I think, in reality, we need to take care of these people, and we need to get them some treatment and some help and it's tough because a lot of people in the moment don't want help, or they can't accept help from anybody because they don't feel like they deserve help, or they don't feel like they deserve a life. I know that feeling because I felt like I didn't deserve life. I felt like I didn't deserve happiness, because that's how I was processing stuff in my mind, as that my best friend was 20 years old and he's lost his entire life. It's gone, and I was 21 years old. Like, it just really mentally messed me up, because a lot of the stuff that I thought that was in my future was now gone. Like those things like getting out, getting your first apartment together, like, doing these things with like your best friend, because we were like brothers. We spent all the time together, and now he's gone forever. And I couldn't accept that, and I didn't know how to deal with that. So it's a very difficult thing to kind of like see things with clarity at the time, because you're acting on emotion, aren't you? You're basing your decisions now on these emotional things that you are not equipped to deal with, and a lot of people around you aren't equipped to deal with. Nobody's equipped to like help you with grief and grief counseling and stuff like that. I mean, I didn't know who to talk to. I felt like I talked to my mom and I talked to his mom, but it was very difficult because, you don't know how to process this stuff. So I started drinking as an escape, and it started, meek and mild, and, I drank occasionally. But then I started to drink and take it too far. So, I would drink and I would be blackout drunk. And, I would start to do these things that the person I was wouldn't normally do, because I felt nothing, And when you feel nothing and you feel empty and you feel, completely gone, then you feel like you just do all these things. Like I would get into fights, and I didn't care. I didn't care about any of the repercussions. None of the repercussions mattered. So if I put somebody in the hospital, if I put myself in the hospital, if I did these horrible things, I just didn't feel anything. I felt hopeless. So I continued to do these things. So right after he passed, I kind of just spiraled down and went into a dark rabbit hole. It started, just hanging out with friends and having a couple drinks, to, just drinking to get by. I remember going to to see Kill Bill with some friends, and I literally bought a fifth of Captain Morgan's and poured it in one of those giant Cokes that you can get from like a supermarket, or like a Turkey Hill, or like a mini mart, right? And so I filled it all up. I dumped half of it out and filled it up halfway with Captain Morgan's. To go to a movie, I couldn't even literally cope with going to see a movie without absolutely being smashed. And by the end of the movie, I was absolutely wrecked. I was loud. I probably ruined a lot of people's movie experience. I was shouting. And I just didn't care. I mean, that was to go see a movie. So imagine what I was like out places. I was an absolute idiot. Just with no regard for my well-being or anybody else's, for that matter. So addiction is a tough thing, and I think until we figure out how to make it more acceptable for people to admit that they have these problems, then people will kind of get pushed to the side and left, in whatever hole they're in, because people don't want to have any sympathy, or they don't want to help these people, because they think that they're just, they're lumped into this pile and they're thrown away. Because it's very hard to look at somebody and think, well, that could be me. And it very well could be. You just haven't made that decision, or you don't have an emotional scar that you're trying to bury or trying to cover up. So you don't have to deal with that in your life. But people that have addiction that run in their family, I mean, this is something that you know could very well happen to your brother, your cousin, your sister, your niece. You could have a parent that was an addict. Um, you know, but these people need help. They need to think about their mental health. So I think it's more like the programs that we need to develop to actually help them. Because a lot of times rehab, you know, they don't want to go to rehab. Nobody wants to go to rehab. Um, they find it like being trapped, like being caged. But I do think like these people need to like we all need to like seek mental health and stuff like that. I know through the years I've seen counselors for grief. I've seen counselors for depression and anxiety, to help me process things that I've held on to from my past, from when I was a kid. Um, just stupid stuff like that I hold on to because that's just who I am. Like I just hold on to these things. They've molded me and made me into the person I am. I see with a lot more clarity now, and I accept who I am, and I try to do better with processing stuff and coping with things. So I know when I came into recovery and into like starting that journey out of being an active person in addiction, to getting clean, it takes a couple months before your mind starts to come out of like what they call the fog, and you kind of be able to see like things a bit more clearer and kind of like have a better view of yourself because you've numbed yourself so much that it's really hard to kind of kind of look at things and have a perspective on things because you've been whacked out on shit for so long that but your perspective is completely fucked. So coming out of it, I noticed that I had a better vision and clearer vision on things about my life and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do and all the things that I thought were not achievable, like a family, a wife, holding a job for more than 3 months. I thought, I got a perspective on being able to see that those things were possible. Also, there's like functioning alcoholics, right? So like some people, and I knew a bunch of my friends, so I surrounded myself with people who were in the same type of situation. They wanted to party, they wanted to get drunk, they wanted to not care. And some of them, yeah, you know what? They go out and drink till 4 in the morning. And they get up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and they would go to work. Probably still half blitzed, but they would go to work. I, on the other hand, found that extremely difficult. I was not functioning. I would miss a lot of time at my jobs. I threw away several jobs due to the fact that I just was too drunk to go, or I just couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't get up. I was still hanging, or I was still really, really wasted. Like if I got in a car at 7 in the morning, I probably would have blown like 3 times the legal limit. Like that's how wasted I was. So yeah, but a lot of my friends, man, they just get up and go to work, and I just was not one of those people. So there are people in this world that are functioning alcoholics, and they literally live day to day, getting drunk and still being able to go to work and still being able to do the things that they normally do. And that just was not the case for me. I was not one of those people. So I lost a lot of things, which like the more you lose in life, like the more things that you lose during this time. So like I felt like when I was losing these things, I felt more hopeless. I felt more helpless. I felt more angry, depressed, alone. So it kind of like accumulates over time. Like you kind of just compound all these things on top of one another, and it just pushes you deeper, down into this abyss where you feel like you're being swallowed up. because, nothing ever goes your way, and you just can't figure out why nothing will go your way. And it's mainly because of the horrible choices you're making, because you can't see past your own nose. Like you're literally trapped in this perpetual cycle of, numbing the pain. So I'd lose a job. I'd be pissed off. I'd be angry. What do? Drink. You know why? Because if you drink, it doesn't bother you anymore. You don't feel it. It's gone. So is your money. Yeah, everything. Everything's gone. And then you wake up in the morning feeling like shit, back in the same spot you were in before you went out because you lost your job, and you spent $80 or $100 on getting fucked out of your mind, and you start over again. So like I would do that constantly. This cycle would repeat. And the friends that I was with, I have no ill will towards any of them. They're all good people. They're my friends forever. But I think we were just all trapped in a shitty place, in a shitty town with nothing to do. And it was completely acceptable to be the person I was, to be that giant raging piece of shit. Completely acceptable. Nobody batted an eye. Nobody literally looked at me differently. Which kind of obviously fueled everything on for years and years and years, where I got deeper and deeper into it. So yeah, these are the things like that kind of trap us in these cycles. And I think people need to understand and have a little more understanding and compassion for people that are struggling, because maybe if somebody would have reached out at the time or got me away from some of this stuff, that I maybe would have got sober sooner. I don't know. I can't say that for sure. But what I can say is that, my mom loved me and cared for me and told me that she loved me, and she just wanted me to be healthy and happy. And my brother, the same. They all told me the same thing. But a lot of that stuff falls on deaf ears when you're trapped in it. You don't notice that. And, I manipulated and I used that to get things that I wanted. So if I was money from my mom for bills, I'd take money from her, and I'd pay some of my bills, but I used majority of it to get drunk. And I did that repeatedly, because, I needed to get drunk. I needed it more than I needed anything else. Like I needed it more than paying bills. So you kind of chase it, and you use these people to get things that you want. Like I used to go out with my friends, and I'd literally go out with like $10, and I'd be completely wrecked by the end of the night. My buddy Matt would buy me drinks. I'd meet people out that would buy shots. I used everything to my advantage to get as fucked up as possible, as fast as possible. Because in an addictive state, you're very manipulative, you're very selfish. Even to this day, I think, as far as like addiction and my addiction goes, like I do see a lot of like selfish tendencies in myself, which probably helped my addiction to spiral, because I am very, I wasn't raised like an only child. My brother was 17 years older. So I spent a lot of time, growing up, I was catered to. I was the baby. So I felt, maybe a sense of entitlement or like, selfishness. I could be a bit more selfish. So I do see that now, and it's harder to break now, and it's harder to accept now, being sober, that you are a bit selfish. So you just try to have to be as humble as possible, as much as possible, because being humble helps me in my recovery, and helps me to be able to do these podcasts and hopefully share a little bit of light and information and help. So yeah, this is what I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to share my story. I'm going to continue to do these podcasts, and hopefully it hits the ears of somebody who's, really needing the help. And some of this stuff can help them to either change their life, or maybe even get in contact with me personally. I'm always willing to talk to people and help people to get on the right path. So I'm going to come to the end of this, about 25 minutes in, and we're going to end the episode. So this has been about addiction. The coming episodes are going to be about recovery, redemption. I'm going to do a couple things about rock bottoms and things like that. So we're just going to cover a whole bunch of topics in regards to recovery and what that means. And yeah, we're just gonna cover all these bases. So I really appreciate you guys. If you're listening, thank you. And this has been Addictively Speaking with James Kashanowski, and we'll see you on the next episode, which is going to be about rock bottom. So we'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.